Now, we talked about saving, we talked about borrowing. There's a third thing you could do. We talked about saving, we talked about borrowing, we talked about working. There's a fourth thing you could do. Oops. That was dangerous. The fourth thing you could do is you could try to do things to avoid risk. Okay, so for example, what's an example of doing something to avoid risk? Imagine there's a high, if you could grow, there's two crops, sugarcane and wheat. Sugarcane is much more profitable, but wheat and sugarcane are subject to independent risk. So, when sugarcane dries up, that doesn't affect wheat, and when wheat dries up, that doesn't affect sugarcane. They're just different things affect them. Then by having a little bit of sugarcane, a little bit of wheat, you have less risk. But of course, you're paying in income. You're taking less income because sugarcane is more productive. So one thing people do is they diversify. In fact, there's like a very interesting paper from many years ago showing they diversify in many very complex ways. One thing that was very interesting is you'll find that in many countries actually, you find that the plots people crop are not adjacent. And that seems to make no sense. I mean, why would I farm over here in the morning, walk 3 kilometers over there and farm in the afternoon? That doesn't seem to make any sense unless you think that there are some kind of microclimates. So it might rain here when it's not raining there, and maybe there is when a bug attacks here, it doesn't attack over there. So even when you're growing the same crop, you grow it over several plots, and the plots are not contiguous. You walk from plot to plot to avoid having exactly being in the same place, because if you're in the same place, then the same rainfall patterns or the same bugs you're subject to them. If you had multiple plots in different places, you can avoid that. Now that's of course wasteful because you are spending a lot of time walking, and you should have been spending that time farming. But at least you reduce risk. So the general principle is that you do many things to diversify, have many crops, many plots, many jobs. There's a study of how many professions a family can have. And I think the maximum number in the study was 27. They were doing 27 different things. They were small things going to the pond and harvesting mussels you do that in the morning. Then you go and collect firewood for sale. Then you go, your son goes and takes a cow to the field, and your daughter feeds the chicken. So you had to add up all those little things, but they were doing 27 different professions, I think was the number, if I remember right. But that's basically a sort of an extreme version of this, avoiding risk by doing a little bit of many things. The problem that's good, it allows you to avoid risk. But it's bad because you end up doing things which are not particularly productive. You don't do the sugarcane, even sugarcane is much more productive than wheat, so you lose money. And that keeps you poor. So it's estimated that if there's no weather risk, and so you didn't change your crop mix to deal with the risk, you would be 30% more, you would make 30% more money. So that's big, right? That's a big, basically the stuff that you're doing to protect against the risk is reducing your income by 30%. Another thing that it does is that because you're doing so many things, you don't get good at any one of them. I mean, one way to get good at a profession is by working very hard at it, learning the job. So a lot of these people, for example, they don't want to go to the city and become a full-time worker in the city. Why? Because they think they'll lose the job. And when they lose the job, if they still have the farm at home, they can come back to the farm and get a living from that. But that means that your job in the city is a temporary job. If I am hiring someone temporary, I have no incentive to give that person any skills. I know he's going to be gone in a month. So nobody gets taught any skills. Why? Because they're all temporary laborers. But why are they temporary laborers? Because they don't want to put all their money into this one basket, or all the eggs into this one basket, because they think that if suppose I lose that job, what's going to happen? I might as well keep my foot in farming. And so they keep their foot in farming, they keep their foot in the city, they keep their foot in farming sugarcane, they keep their foot in farming wheat. So they do many, many different things. That means they don't get good at anything, and they don't take advantage of what they're good at.